Some stories begin with a secret. This one began with a signature that almost destroyed an empire. On the 27th floor of a glass and steel tower in Chicago, a deal worth billions was seconds away from becoming reality. The boardroom was polished, the suits were pressed, and the pen was poised to sign. No one saw the trap. Not the attorneys, not the executives, not even the man who built the company. No one, except a 16-year-old girl in worn sneakers standing quietly at the door. She didn't belong in that room. She wasn't on the payroll. But she saw something no one else dared to notice. And when she spoke, the air froze. Her words would unravel a conspiracy, years in the making, and force the powerful to answer to someone they never thought mattered. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the city outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. Jackson Hale, CEO of Hale Investments, leaned over the mahogany table pen in hand, ready to sign away the largest merger of his career. Clara Hale sat beside him, all polished composure. Across from them, Derek Vaughn wore the easy smile of a man who knew the deal was already his. "Excuse me." The voice was soft but cut through the air like glass. Heads turned toward the doorway. A girl stood there, 16, slim hair, pulled back sneakers worn at the edges, holding nothing but a battered messenger bag. Her name was Maya Williams, the daughter of a night janitor. "You might want to read page 14 again," she said, pointing to the stack of papers. In front of Hale, Vaughn's smile faltered for the first time. "I'm sorry, who is this?" "She's Clara," began, but Maya didn't wait. "That clause," Maya said, her voice steady, "shifts every bit of legal liability from Vaughn Global to Hale Investments. If this merger runs into fraud charges, defaults, lawsuits, you take the hit. They walk away clean." The room stiffened. One junior executive slid the contract closer. Another tapped a tablet to pull up the page. Hale's gaze moved from Maya to the document, then back again. "You're saying this is hidden?" His tone was calm, too calm. "It's written to sound standard," Maya said, "but it's not protection. It's a trap. You sign this, your company takes the fall." Clara's voice cracked. "Jackson, this is ridiculous. She's a child." But Jackson was no longer listening to his wife. His eyes dropped to the fine print. Paragraph C, line 3. Exactly where she said it would be. Vaughn leaned forward. "Are we really entertaining conspiracy theories from someone who cleans windows?" Maya didn't flinch. "Laugh if you want. But once you sign, your name will be on every court summons that follows." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Hale set the pen down. "Clear the room," he said. Security moved toward Maya, but she stood her ground until the doors closed behind her. As she glanced back one last time, she caught Hale's eyes, not the eyes of a CEO, but of a man who just realized how close he'd come to losing everything. That pen never touched the paper. The next morning, the lobby of Hale Investments felt colder than usual. Maya sat in a metal chair outside the security office, her messenger bag at her feet. Her mother, Denise, sat beside her, arms folded tight, staring straight ahead. No one had offered them water. No one had said what they were waiting for. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the silence. Denise hadn't spoken since last night when they were escorted out of the building. But now her voice came low-edged with disappointment. "I cleaned that building to keep food on the table," she said. "Not so you can walk into boardrooms like you own the place." Maya's eyes dropped to the floor. "I didn't mean to embarrass you." "You didn't embarrass me," Denise said. "You put us both out of a job." Before Maya could respond, the office door swung open. A woman from HR stepped out, clipboard in hand. Her voice was flat. "Mrs. Williams, you're being placed on unpaid leave. We'll be in touch." Denise's jaw tightened. She stood gripping Maya's arm. "Let's go." Outside, the sharp wind off Lake Michigan slapped against their faces. Maya glanced back at the tower of glass and steel, the place she thought she might actually make a difference. Now she wasn't even allowed inside. Across the city, 30 floors above that same lobby, Jackson Hale sat alone in his private office. The unsigned contract lay open in front of him. Paragraph C, line 3. She had been right. The language wasn't a mistake, it was deliberate. Crafted to look routine, designed to strip Hale Investments of its defenses. "How the hell did I miss this?" he muttered. In his mind, Clara's voice from the night before replayed, "It's a standard clause, Jackson. Trust me." That word trust no longer felt like a comfort. He began pulling other contracts tied to Derek Vaughn. Cross-checking terms, subsidiaries, shell structures. Too clean, too coordinated. When his phone rang, Clara's name lit the screen. "You didn't sign it, did you?" she asked immediately. "No," he said. "You're overthinking this. You're letting that girl get in your head." "She saw what none of us did," Jackson replied quietly. Clara's voice softened. "She's just a teenager, the janitor's daughter. You can't really be taking her word over mine." But Jackson didn't answer, because for the first time, he wasn't sure who in his life he could believe. That evening, Maya sat curled on the couch in their small apartment, a mug of cocoa cooling in her hands. Denise was at the kitchen table scrolling through job listings in silence. The quiet broke with a ping from Maya's laptop. An email from a name she didn't recognize, Robert Barnes. Subject line, "Did you see it too?" She hesitated, then clicked. "I used to work there. I know what you saw. If you're willing to talk, I'm willing to listen." Her pulse quickened. She typed back before she could second-guess herself. Within minutes, a reply came through. Attached was a PDF pages of flagged risk assessments, buried audit reports, and one line in bold, red ink. "If they plant this clause, we're finished." Signed, Robert Barnes. Maya's fingers tightened around the trackpad. Whoever this man was, he'd been inside, and he'd been silenced. 2 miles away, Jackson Hale sat in the dim light of his office, a folder open. On his desk labeled Internal Review. Barnes. The contents mirrored what Maya was reading at that very moment. Warnings ignored, red flags buried. Names carefully kept off official records. But one thing stood out above all: Clara's name, linked directly to Vaughn Global through a chain of offshore accounts. Jackson leaned back in his chair, eyes closing for a long moment. If this was true, the threat wasn't just to his company. It was inside his home. In a luxury bar across town, Clara sat across from Derek Vaughn, her hand resting lightly on his arm. They laughed over drinks, their body language closer than business should allow. Vaughn slid a small envelope toward her. She slipped it into her clutch without looking. Back in the apartment, Maya's phone buzzed again. Another message from Barnes. Check their spending habits. 3 transfers offshore, Cayman, BVI, Zurich. Maya pulled up public transaction records, her hands shaking. There it was, an account in Clara Hale's name, tied to a dormant corporate trust. For the first time since stepping into that boardroom, Maya understood. This wasn't just a bad deal. It was a setup, one that could take down an empire. Late that night, the Gold Moon Lounge glowed above the Chicago skyline. Jackson Hale sat at a corner table, a glass of untouched whiskey in front of him. He wasn't there to drink, he was there to watch. Through the curve of frosted glass, he spotted them, Clara and Derek Vaughn. Seated close, their laughter easy, private. At one point, Clara's manicured hand rested on Vaughn's arm as if it belonged there. Vaughn leaned in, speaking low, sliding a slim business card across the table. Clara accepted it without breaking eye contact. Jackson's jaw tightened. He couldn't hear the words, but the body language told him everything. Across the city, Maya sat at her desk, the glow of her laptop lighting her face. On the screen, a video call with Robert Barnes flickered. "They've done this before," Barnes said. "Same language, same shell accounts. The last company that took the deal collapsed under legal fees within 6 months. Vaughn walked away, richer." Maya scribbled down keywords: indemnification, contingent, liability, performance loss. She didn't understand all the terms, but she understood enough they were laying a trap. "You realize," Barnes added, "if you keep digging, they'll come for you?" "They already tried," Maya said. Hours later, Jackson returned to his office, his mind racing. On his desk sat a fresh compliance alert: suspicious activity. Attempted transfer blocked. Clara had tried to authorize a $2.5 million movement from a dormant corporate trust. The transaction was stopped in time. Jackson stared at the report. The darkness wasn't just circling his company, it was living under his roof. Somewhere else in the city, Clara Hale sat in the back seat of a black SUV, beside Vaughn. She was tense now, less playful. "He's starting to look into it," she said. Vaughn's reply was calm. "Then we make sure he's looking in the wrong direction." The next morning, Maya tried calling Barnes. No answer. By late afternoon, she took the train to his apartment, climbing the narrow stairwell 2 steps at a time. The door was ajar, inside empty. No signs of a struggle, no note, nothing. Except a single cardboard box sitting on the kitchen counter labeled in black marker MW. Her chest tightened. She opened it. Inside a flash drive and a yellow post-it. They know I'm helping you. Don't come back here. Find someone you can trust. Soon, that night, Jackson sat alone in his car outside a shuttered courthouse on the west side. He wasn't there for a judge. He was there for Victoria Chan, civil rights attorney, former prosecutor, known for taking cases no one else would touch. She slid into the passenger seat without ceremony, her black coat trailing like a shadow. "Mr. Hale," she said, "you've come to the right person. But this is bigger than a bad contract." "I know," Jackson replied. "This is organized financial subversion, maybe racketeering. I need to protect my company. And a girl who saw it before I did." Victoria arched an eyebrow. "A girl, she's 16, Maya Williams. And she caught it before my entire legal team." For the first time, Victoria's lips curved into something like a smile. "Then she might be our most valuable witness." The next morning, Maya stood outside Hale Tower, again clutching a canvas evidence bag. She wasn't on the visitor list, but a young staffer she recognized from late-night cleaning shifts approached and glanced around. "Mr. Hale said if you ever came back, I should take you straight up." When Jackson saw her step into his office, something in his expression softened. "I owe you more than an apology," he said. "I owe you the truth." Maya's voice was steady. "Then let's get it before someone else disappears." Moments later, the three of them, Jackson, Maya, and Victoria, sat in a private conference room. Documents spread across the table like a battle map. Victoria tapped a pen against the stack. "This is your war now," she told Maya. "But with the right moves, we win before they know we're fighting." Maya nodded, nerves and resolve tightening in equal measure. For the first time, she wasn't alone. 2 nights later, the Hale Foundation Gala shimmered with champagne flutes and camera flashes. It had always been Clara's domain, charity's high society, the kind of events that polished reputations. Tonight, Jackson was the one holding the microphone. Before the first course was served, he stepped onto the stage. "I want to speak to you." He began scanning the glittering crowd, not as a CEO, but as a man who has made mistakes. Clara froze at the champagne table, her fingers tightening around the stem of her glass. "For years, I believed that numbers told the whole story," Jackson continued. "But numbers don't save you. People do." The room murmured. Heads began to turn toward Clara. "I've reviewed every contract this company has signed, and what I found, what a young woman found, has changed me." In the back of the room, Victoria stood with her arms crossed, watching every reaction. Jackson set the microphone down and walked out before anyone could ask questions. Behind him, whispers began to spread like cracks in glass. That night, Maya sat in her bedroom, flipping through another folder from Barnes. At the top, an email chain between Clara and Vaughn. He's starting to pull back. "You know what to do." She had just started copying it to a secure drive when the apartment lights flickered. Her laptop screen went black. Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number. Stop digging or we start digging into you." Maya's hand trembled, but she didn't close the folder. Instead, she pulled a Sharpie from her desk drawer and wrote 3 words on a fresh page: "Don't back down." Somewhere in the city, Clara Hale poured herself another drink, ignoring the envelope that had been dropped into her mail slot. Inside, a photo of Jackson, Victoria, and Maya, leaning over a spread of documents, 3 signatures circled in red. A note underneath read, "You're losing control." She didn't look at it twice before dialing Vaughn. "They're moving faster than we thought." "Then we remind them who has the real power," Vaughn said. By dawn, the story had broken. Breaking Hale Investments. Halts billion-dollar merger. Anonymous teen credited as key witness. Photos of Maya pulled from her high school's website were suddenly everywhere. Some called her a hero. Others called her a liar. All of them wanted to know her name. In the apartment kitchen, Denise set the newspaper down without a word. "They'll come after you harder now," she said quietly. "They already are," Maya replied. That afternoon at school, Maya felt the stares before she even reached her locker. Half the students avoided her like she carried a virus. The other half whispered her name. like it was a dare. When she opened her locker, a folded note fell out. "We know where you live. Stay quiet. Stay safe." She kept her face still, shoved the note into her bag, and walked straight to the principal's office. By sunset, Victoria had secured a court order for protective custody for both Maya and Denise. Across the city, Jackson's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Not worth it. He stared at the text for a long moment before calling Victoria. They still have federal eyes on this. "They're watching," she said. "But they need someone willing to testify in public." Silence stretched between them until Jackson exhaled. "Then I'll do it." The next morning, the Chicago Tribune ran the headline, "CEO to testify against internal conspiracy, investigation tied to multi-billion-dollar fraud scheme." At the press conference, Jackson stood on a stage flanked by Victoria and 2 federal agents. "I was blind," he told the cameras, "not just to fraud, but to courage. A 16-year-old girl saved my company from the inside, the same company that never saw her beyond her mother's uniform." He let the silence work before adding, "From this day forward, we see her." Maya watched from the safety of her apartment, the hum of the TV filling the room. Outside, a crowd had gathered, neighbors, reporters, strangers, holding hand-painted signs, "We believe in Maya." For the first time in days, she allowed herself to breathe. But in a high-rise suite across town, Derek Vaughn scrolled through a photo of Maya on the witness stand, his jaw set. "She's still just a kid," Clara muttered from the window. "Kids don't topple empires," Vaughn said. "Symbols do, and we break her before she becomes one." The courthouse steps groaned under the weight of cameras and reporters. Dark clouds hung low over Chicago, but the air buzzed with electricity. Inside courtroom 12B, the atmosphere was heavier. Rows of wooden benches were packed. The press clung to every seat they could get. Jackson Hale adjusted his tie, eyes locked on the double doors. Beside him, Victoria Chan flipped through her notes. 2 rows back, Maya Williams sat quietly, her hair neatly pulled back, a plain blouse and blazer making her look older than her 16 years, but not less resolute. Across the aisle, Derek Vaughn leaned back in his chair, a mask of calm. Beside him, Clara Hale sat in a black dress, her expression unreadable, her gaze fixed straight ahead. "All rise." The judge entered and the trial began. Victoria opened with precision, no theatrics, no wasted words. She laid out the facts, the hidden clauses, the offshore accounts, the deliberate shifting of liability to Hale Investments, while Vaughn and Clara positioned themselves to profit. Documents were displayed, dates matched, forensic accountants corroborated every detail. Clara didn't look at Jackson once. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. "Your Honor," Victoria said, "the prosecution calls Maya Williams to the stand." The room fell silent. Camera shutters clicked. Maya walked forward, not like a victim, not even like a teenager, but like the only person in that building who had dared to speak the truth. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore her oath, and took her seat. "Miss Williams," Victoria began, "how did you first become involved in this case?" "I was helping my mom clean the 27th floor, Maya said, her voice steady. "She works the night shift on the cleaning crew. I saw the contract in the copy room. Something about it didn't look right. When I read the fine print, it didn't sound right either." What didn't sound right there was a clause that transferred all legal liability from Vaughn Global to Mr. Hale's company. If anything went wrong, only his side would take the hit. Victoria stepped closer. "Why speak up? You were 16. No one asked you to read it." Maya's eyes moved from Clara to Vaughn, then back to the jury. Just because I clean your walls," she said, "doesn't mean I can't see the dirt." The room shifted. Even the judge's expression changed. Clara's hands tightened. Vaughn's jaw flexed. Cross-examination was sharp. Vaughn's lawyer tried to discredit her. "Ms. Williams, did you understand all the legal terms in that contract?" "No, sir," Maya said. "But I understood enough to know someone was hiding something. Would you consider yourself an expert?" "In corporate law, no. But I don't think you need a degree to spot when someone's setting you up to fail." A murmur ran through the jury box. Maya had not just held her ground, she'd won it. After Maya stepped down, Jackson Hale took the stand. Victoria's first question was simple. What made you believe her? Jackson hesitated, glancing at the jury before answering. My gut told me she was right, he said. But more than that, I remembered something I'd forgotten. And what was that? That integrity doesn't depend on status. Sometimes the janitor's daughter sees the cracks before the boardroom does. The jurors shifted, leaning in. Jackson's words had landed. Then it was Clara's turn. She walked to the stand with the poise of someone who had never been told no, her black dress immaculate, her chin high. But when Victoria began her questioning, the mask started to slip. Mrs. Hale, Victoria said, sliding a small recorder onto the evidence table. Do you recognize this voice? Static. Then Clara's own words played for the courtroom. If he asks, remind him what he has to lose. Clara's jaw tightened, her gaze falling to the table. I didn't want it to go that far, she murmured. I thought if we just closed the deal, Jackson wouldn't have to know. And when Maya exposed it, her voice cracked for the first time. I wanted her gone because she saw everything I'd worked so hard to keep hidden. No, one spoke. The silence was heavier than any outburst. Outside cameras waited like predators. Inside, Maya sat in the second row, her hands clasped together, heart pounding. Jackson stepped off the stand and passed her seat. You didn't have to come, she whispered. I did, he replied. To be the man you thought I was that day in the boardroom. She gave a faint smile. You're getting there. That night the jury deliberated. Hours passed. The city outside the courthouse hummed with anticipation. Finally, just before midnight, they returned. On the charges of conspiracy to commit corporate fraud, falsifying financial documents, and obstruction of justice. Guilty. The word struck the room like a hammer. Derek Vaughn's smirk evaporated. Clara closed her eyes. The judge wasted no time. 10 years in federal prison for both defendants, with no chance of parole in the first. 7. Maya exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. In the weeks that followed, Hale Investments did not collapse. It reformed. Jackson ordered a full restructuring. Clara's name was erased from every board record. Vaughn's assets were frozen. Victoria Chan was appointed Chief Ethics Counsel. And in a move that caught the press off guard, Jackson announced the creation of the Maya Williams Fellowship, a full scholarship for young people with vision and courage. At the press conference held inside the same building Maya once cleaned, Jackson spoke plainly. Maya didn't just protect this company. She reminded us who we're supposed to be. The room erupted in applause. Maya stood beside him in a fitted blazer over a crisp white blouse, the faintest smile on her lips. Later that evening, she stopped by Jackson's office with a manila envelope in hand. I got my Columbia acceptance letter, she said, her eyes bright. You earned more than that, he replied. You've got a seat at any table you want now. She hesitated. Do you regret any of it? Jackson looked out the window at the Chicago skyline, glowing. Gold. I regret that I didn't see it coming, he said quietly. But I don't regret who stood up when I couldn't. Days later, Clara Hale was processed into a federal detention center in Wisconsin. She made no statement, filed no appeal. In her cell, she replayed the audio that sealed her fate, Maya's voice. Just because I clean your walls doesn't mean I can't see the dirt. In Jackson's office, that same phrase was engraved on a small plaque beside Maya's envelope, placed on a shelf above his most treasured awards. Underneath it read, Truth isn't loud, but it lasts. He leaned back in his chair, eyes closing for a moment. Once, a girl had pointed to a single line in a contract and changed everything. And now, from the ashes of deceit, an empire stood again, cleaner, stronger, and unshakably honest, built by the one they never saw coming. Some battles are fought in courtrooms, others are fought in boardrooms. But the most important ones, they're fought in moments when someone decides to speak up, even if their voice shakes. Maya's story is a reminder that the truth doesn't care about titles, and courage doesn't come with a corner office. It can come from anywhere, and from anyone. If this story moved you, if you believe in voices like Maya's, join us here. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story that proves one voice can change everything.